Many people are stuck because they never truly reset their guts, so they're in constant flare up, or they never properly reveal their triggers, or they are stuck in that perpetual elimination, or they just fail to rebuild and to reintroduce food. People still demonizing, food and trying to cut as much as possible, and then they stay with, five safe foods and something that they are not afraid of eating because it doesn't cause problems, right? Yeah. So I think that supplements, they can play a supportive role in IBS.
Like if it's a laxative, right? Like for constipation, you can take a laxative and go and take a laxative and go. But if it's like you're taking a laxative for 10, 20, 30 years, you're all of a sudden dependent. Hey there, I'm Krishy from the BioBelly Show. Thank you so much for spending your time tuning in to this episode today. Before we hop into the episode, I just wanted to spend a quick minute telling you why we started this amazing podcast. My aunt has been suffering from IBS-C, so a predominance of constipation and irritable bowel syndrome, for the past 2 decades. And my best friend Ankit has been suffering from a form of inflammatory bowel disease, which is ulcerative colitis, for the past 5 years. And seeing my aunt's heavy reliance on laxatives and seeing the struggles my best friend Ankit is currently facing recovering from his IBD showed me the information gap there lies in optimizing our gut health. And that's exactly why we started this podcast. We want to bring on all specialists from different schools of medicine and get their take on what it takes to truly optimize our gut health. Because we at BioBelly truly believe that true health starts with the gut. And so we're bringing on gastroenterologists, IBS dietitians, CBT specialists, if it's stress related, EDMR therapists, as well as acupuncture specialists, because there's more and more literature coming out backing the efficacy of acupuncture in our gut issues. So getting all these different takes, I hope our goal with this podcast is to give you guys holistic knowledge on how to improve gut health. And, a second reason why we started this podcast is because our goal is to be a part of that change, a part of that solution. And so we want to be a trusted brand that offers supplements as well as offers a beautiful ecosystem through which people who are IBS sufferers or people just with gut issues can seek refuge and get holistic care through an interconnected network of gastroenterologists, IBS specialists, gut hypnotherapists, and beyond. So without further ado, let's hop into the episode, and thank you so much for your time. Today, I'm excited to bring Aleks Jagiełło, the brilliant IBS dietitian behind at IBS.gutdietitian on Instagram, where I actually found her. Aleks has helped thousands of women find relief from IBS, not through endless restriction or generic advice, but through a truly structured, science-backed method that works in real life. She created the IBS Success Plan, a system that combines personalized nutrition, nervous system healing, and real world tools to help people go from I've tried everything to I finally feel like myself again. If you've been stuck in the flare up cycle, scared of food, or spending hundreds of dollars on gut supplements that don't help and don't serve you, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Aleks, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm also pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Aleks, I'm very curious about your journey. If we can start with your story and how'd you get into this world of gut health and IBS?
Sure. So maybe I would just start telling you a little bit more how I got into dietetics, because my journey to gut health started from there. So I am a UK registered dietitian, and originally I'm from Poland. And in many ways, my journey into gut health and IBS began long before I formally studied it. So as a child, I struggled a lot with chronic constipation. So my diet at the time, was far from ideal. I consumed plenty of sweets, especially chocolate, and also very little fiber or vegetables. And there were days that I would spend what felt like hours in the bathroom, straining and uncomfortable. And my mom did everything she could, offering plums, encouraging drinking more water, etc. But that issue still persisted because I kept the same diet. And digestion was also tied into another major part of my life, which was sports. So I played competitive volleyball, and whether or not I had a what we call it a successful bowel movement before match often determined how well I performed right during a match. So even now, actually, my friends joke about it. Just this year, during a charity tournament, someone asked if I've done my thing that morning. And I think it's funny, but it's also telling me that gut health was always, present in my story, even before I had a language to describe it. So academically, I was always drawn to the sciences. So I majored in chemistry and biology in high school. And so it felt natural to pursue dietetics at the university. And I also trained at the medical university in Poland, which gave me sort of direct exposure to clinical practice across different departments, which also included one that quickly became my favorite, which was gastroenterology. And later on, I moved to the UK. I continued my professional journey. So first of all, I finished masters over there, and then I was working in sort of diverse settings, from inpatient eating disorder units to community roles with mixed caseloads, including also digestive health. But what became increasingly clear for me was that our standard approach to IBS, particularly within the NHS, so National Health Service in the UK, is often limited. So it's highly protocol driven with little room for personalization or deeper support. And the more I learned, the more I also realized that IBS isn't just about food, it's about the gut brain connection and how the nervous system and digestive system constantly communicate with each other. So I found it then incredibly frustrating to see, patients stuck in restrictive diets, often offer nothing beyond, let's say, the low FODMAP diet, which is a secondary line advice in the UK. And I knew that, there's more holistic or there are more effective strategies out there. So that's what led me to start my own practice and to provide that kind of care. And I believe that IBS patients truly deserve, that holistic approach. So I created my Instagram page that you've probably seen, share some practical evidence-based gut health education. But I also later built two signature programs. So one of them is the IBS Relief Blueprint, which is my one-on-one coaching, and then IBS Success Plan, which you've already mentioned, how people move from those flare-ups to real food freedom. There are three phases, essentially. Yeah.
Yes.
Which we can get into more in a moment. Yeah.
I'm very curious because I agree with you, Alex. Just like in UK, I think in America as well, the treatment around IBS, it's very protocol driven. There's a lack of personalization, and because of this gut brain axis, there's we're opening a whole world of different root causes that might be driving the IBS. If it's trauma, stress, day-to-day issues, even like fear around a specific food. So now your relationship with the food. So there's all of a sudden so many different drivers of this gut issue. So if you could break down the success plan for us and how it is you take a client from A to all the way Z, freedom from IBS.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the big reason why people get stuck is that lack of structured, personalized approach. So that's, I often say actually that IBS management isn't one size fits all, because it's about finding your triggers and your relief tools. So in my IBS success plan, I use that three-phase system that I mentioned. So it's reset, reveal, and then rebuild, essentially to cut through that noise. So first of all, we reset by calming everything down. Then we reveal triggers methodically, and then finally we rebuild a sustainable lifestyle. So many people are stuck because they never truly reset their guts. So they're in constant flare up, or they never properly reveal their triggers, or they are stuck in that perpetual elimination, or they just fail to rebuild and to reintroduce foods, right? So their gut never gets a chance or never learns to tolerate anything new, right? And without that step-by-step process, that approach, I think it's no surprise that they feel lost. And so the bottom line really is that that noisy advice that's
Yeah.
coming from everywhere, leads to overwhelm and also some paralysis as well because of those extreme measures, without relief. So to get unstuck, we sort of need to tune out that hype, stick to the evidence-based fundamentals, and also follow a clear plan that addresses all the aspects of IBS. So not just diet, right? But also things like you mentioned, so stress, your routine, your mindset, even things like meal timing, meal size, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm. Got you. And so it's reset, something and then rebuild, right? What was the second one?
Reset, reveal, and then rebuild.
Perfect. Got you. And so for the reset, is it a colon flush that they're doing, like with maybe magnesium citrate or something like that?
So it's not really about doing any detox, but it's to
Okay.
calm down the symptoms. So we are going to approach different angles here, things like sleep, stress management, hydration, and then soothing foods will be included as well in that phase. The whole point is to get a baseline where you're more or less symptom free. You will never be symptom free, but being in a
Right.
place where you can move on to the next phase. And it's very individual, right? Very subjective, because for one person, bloating 5 means at a 5, let's say on a scale from 1 to 10, is going to be completely manageable and fine. But for some other person, 5 means that they are not handling it well. So it's really personal.
Alex, it must be a challenge, right? Kind of nitpicking and trying to introspect exactly what's wrong with a person, given there's so many different variables and every gut is unique.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. So different people also have different triggers. So that's why the approach is always unique, and the treatment you provide for these people is always going to differ.
So in this, I assume there's probably an initial call, right, where you're just trying to get to know the person and understand, okay, what can be the triggers, just so you can kind of map your vision around what are the most probable problems, if it's diet related, stress related, etc. So you mentioned like sleep, hydration, but then for the specific foods that you will prescribe during this reset segment of the protocol, how do you know which ones or maybe not trigger foods and which ones are more alleviating and will induce the calming effect?
Yeah, so just to also clarify, for
Yes.
the IBS Success Plan, it's self-led program.
Okay.
So
Yes.
there is no initial call, but it
Cool.
has all the lessons and all the guidance, including worksheets. So it's very practical, hands-on, where people, they are just figuring this out themselves, right? So for someone who has less time or wants to do it in their own pace, that's perfect. And then there is IBS Relief Blueprint, where we have my one-to-one support. And you're correct saying that I have this initial consultation with the person, and then we are unpacking what's going on. So it's take about 1 hour, 15 minutes, or sometimes even 1.5 hours to go through all the relevant history, all the patterns, all the things that are relevant. And then based on that, we are creating an approach together as a team, how to essentially start the process. But first thing that I would start majority of my clients is like I mentioned, so calming the gut, which essentially means that we are avoiding obvious triggers, so things like alcohol, things like greasy foods, spicy foods. So these are the main culprits for many people. So for that moment, for those couple of weeks, we are removing that completely. For some other people, who knows, caffeine might be a problem as well, that will be removed. And then we are looking at hydration strategies if someone doesn't drink fluids at all, depending also what type of IBS they have, right? So here it will matter. And things like just establishing regular eating pattern. People, I think they underestimate the importance of those simple things like meal timing, like regular eating. And with that busy life, we have very erratic way of eating. We skip meals, or then we eat a huge meal in the evening, and then we expect our body just to function normally, right? So this is not optimal.
Right.
So we are trying to find this optimum, and usually after 2-3 weeks, people feel the difference without
Mm-hmm.
any restrictions, just
Right.
by altering their lifestyle a little bit. That may also include some mindfulness, some meditation, or some light exercise. Because some people again think that exercise helps, but and there is information out there on the internet that exercise helps, right? IBS. But it's not necessarily true. If someone does high intensity workout, this can actually worsen things. So it's really important to match the type of activity to what you actually can tolerate, and duration as well needs to be matched to your own circumstances. Yeah.
Love it. So I got establishing regular eating patterns, sleep, hydration, proper food, mindfulness, and exercise, right?
Yeah, so mindfulness is about managing stress as well. So that can include breathing exercise as well. If, for example, people know they get stressed before certain meetings at work, they may try to relax a little bit by breathing, right?
Yes. And during this time, are you maybe recommending any supplements to kind of calm down the system, or is it strictly just optimizing your lifestyle?
Yeah, so usually I try to avoid adding supplements. This would be later on, and when we talk about supplements, I will explain a little bit more about it. Because
Mhm.
also, if we give a person too many things at one time, we may not necessarily know what is the culprit here. And I also want people to track all these things. I want them to track how their day goes, right? So I even things like, listen, I got stressed after this event, right? So then maybe that can correlate with that flare up at that time, right? So once you have 2 or 3 weeks of logging properly your hydration, your sleep, your stress levels, your food intake, you can see patterns emerging, and then you can pinpoint where are those moments where you are getting flare-ups, and it doesn't have to be related to food at all.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Because it's gut brain axis, right? Um,
exactly.
and so for the second phase, let's move on to that. The reveal phase. I feel like, especially for the blueprint, if it's a very productive call, maybe a fifth, like majority of the homework for the reveal phase is probably done already because you know most of the triggers, right?
Yes and no. So usually, if what happens is that once we establish that baseline symptom management, right? Another step, if the person is, let's say, eligible for, let's say, that phase 2, which will be reveal, would be going on a low FODMAP diet. And now there is some variability here. So it might be gentle low FODMAP diet depending on person again, because some people won't need full restriction and full low FODMAP diet. Some people also, if they know what the triggers are, they may not even avoid certain foods, or avoid certain foods if they know already that these are the culprits, right? So we're then going through that low FODMAP diet, and that's where there is low FODMAP diet for followed for a couple of weeks, and then it's followed by the reintroduction. So that's our review phase, right? So that's where they systematically reintroduce FODMAPs by eating bigger portion each day for 3 days, and then they note any symptoms. But of course, again, here it varies, because if someone has symptoms after day one, eating just, let's say, 1/4 of a clove of the garlic, right? They won't continue to, and they will not proceed to day 2. They will stop there. They already know that this is going to be problematic. So, right. So we are not reintroducing all the foods in the world, but just particular foods that represent, let's say, that particular FODMAP group, right? I don't know if we need to say what the FODMAPs are, or your
Oh
your
yeah.
audience is aware.
Well, I am aware because I'm reading this book.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I know the basics. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but the FODMAP, there are these sugars, right? That when they're introduced to your gut, there's these bacteria that eat them up and release lots of gas, and the gas presses on the nerves. Please enlighten me.
No,
Yes.
yeah, you are
Yeah.
correct. It's just that different FODMAPs have different way of influencing the gut
Right.
function, right? So some of
Right.
them will be the food for bacteria, like you said, and it will ferment and then cause lots of gas, and that will cause distension, and that's very problematic. But it also might be, like, for example, excess fructose, right, which is also a FODMAP, that it pulls water into the bowels, which then leads to diarrhea on the other hand, right, in those susceptible individuals. So there is different ways those FODMAPs are affecting the bowel function. For example, dairy products. So someone who is lactose intolerant, right? They lack the enzyme lactase, right? So the sugar is just not being correctly digested, right? So again, that's what happens here, and then the symptoms start. So I think it is important also to understand the mechanism, because for some people it might be that only one or two FODMAP groups are problematic and no other.
Right, right. Yeah. So if you could just if we could look at that a bit more closely, if you could break down FODMAP, which one of those are usually creating that as you said, like osmotic laxative, like drawing water in, or which ones are, fermenting or causing a lot of fermentation in the gut?
Yeah, so we have, like you said, fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. Yeah, that's how it goes.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah, so oligosaccharides will be, that's the fructans, for example, and those will be problematic because they are fermenting in the gut and they may cause unpleasant sensations like gas and distension. So, bloating, distension, they're similar, although a bit different. And then we have disaccharides. So, that's, for example, lactose. And here, this will pull water into the intestine alongside the monosaccharides, so fructose, for example. And then we have polyo. So these are things like sorbitol, mannitol. So these are, for example, artificial sweeteners that are added to like chewing gum, to some sweets, to replace sugar. And again, those may cause bloating. For some people, they may cause diarrhea as well. So yeah, that's what the main groups are. Yeah.
Got it, got it. And you were mentioning a little bit tracking earlier. Is it maybe like a food diary that you guide a person through while they're, trying to figure out what foods specifically in this FODMAP hierarchy that might be triggering their problems?
Yeah, so are you asking me if there is some structure in that
Yes.
phase?
Yeah,
Yes.
like tracking. Like, like sometimes I think I looked at one of your Instagram reels and you were mentioning food tracking, like
Yeah,
food journal almost.
that's correct. So food journal is good even before going on a low FODMAP diet. Just not just food journal, but all the things that we already discussed. So
Right.
lifestyle journal, let's call it, right?
Yes.
And then during that FODMAP, low FODMAP diet, it's very important still. It's still important to log your lifestyle anyway, right? Because sometimes it might be that there was a reaction to certain FODMAP that was being reintroduced, but it might not be that this was the cause. It might be something else. It might be a travel, or it might be going out and eating something that contained different FODMAP that caused that problem, right? So in that case, it's very important to make sure that you log all of that information, because that will inform whether we need to stop for a moment and then reintroduce that particular food again, or
Hmm.
whether we can move forward. Yeah,
Got it.
but the whole point really is not a restriction, is adding as many foods as possible back into the diet. So it's very rare that people are intolerant to all the FODMAPs. It's normally not happening. Usually it's one, two groups, and then everything else is fine. Yet I think people still demonizing, food and trying to cut as much as possible, and then they stay with, five safe foods, something that they are not afraid of eating because it doesn't cause problems, right? Well, it won't, because by nature those type of foods will not cause the problem, but you are depriving yourself from micronutrients, vitamins, and also your gut bacteria is not as diverse as it could have been, right, if you were eating more plants, more varied diets.
Yes. Speaking of varied diets, along with low FODMAP, I think you mentioned it, some people strictly resort to eating just carnivore diet. I was wondering, what's your take on that? Like versus a plant-based low FODMAP diet? Or is it a blend of both, which is optimal for that specific phase?
Yeah, so I would say that, so those we would call them fat diets. So there's no real support for using those diets in those circumstances. And obviously, if someone is on a carnivore diet, it means that they're just eating mm, animal-based products, right? So they are not eating any products that potentially cause the problem, right? They are not eating those carbohydrates, but at the same time the diet is lacking of many nutrients. So I would not recommend any of those fat diets for healing IBS. The only one that is researched very well is the low FODMAP diet, and that doesn't mean that everyone needs to go on this diet. It's not true, because like I said, it might be that the symptoms are not related to food at all.
Right. Understood. And speaking of gaps in nutrition, we mentioned it a bit earlier, supplements. I was wondering what's your take on supplements specifically for IBS?
Yeah. So in terms of supplements, I would say, and I'll give it to you straight, that there's no magic pill, right? But definitely a few can be genuinely helpful as part of a bigger plan. And I'm I'm a cautious fan of, let's say, targeted supplements. And in my experience, those over-the-counter gut health pills are overhyped and not worth the money, or sometimes can even worsen the symptoms. But there are some evidence-based supplements, they are evidence-backed, that I can recommend to people, but it will be at a later stage, like I mentioned. And one of those is, for example, peppermint oil. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes.
Yeah, so they are antispasmodics, and here I would recommend definitely enteric coated peppermint oil, so that it doesn't dissolve in the stomach. It dissolves in the bowels, so it doesn't trigger stomach lining, and it can help relieve things like cramping, pain, and also bloating, which is good when you already have your strategy to manage your IBS long term, right? So you have it in your, let's say, toolkit as one of the solutions that will help you manage the symptoms, right? But I wouldn't necessarily introduce it straight away, because then it's difficult to pinpoint what the problem is.
Okay.
So the next one will be soluble fiber.
Okay.
That's another one I would trust. And one of the very well-known ones is Psyllium husk. So it's a gentle soluble fiber. It can actually help with both diarrhea and constipation, because it bulks up loose stools and also softens hard stools, which means that it's helping to normalize bowel movements, right? So you see, different supplements have, again, different function, different role to play.
Yes.
Like Psyllium is more geared towards making sure that the bowel movement is regular, whereas peppermint oil capsule will be helpful for relieving certain symptoms like pain. So that will be another great thing to have in your toolkit if you already know how to manage your IBS. And here it's important to remember that soluble fiber will do much better than insoluble fibers. So things like wheat bran, it's not necessarily recommended, because it can actually trigger the gut even more, right? So it's important to understand also the difference between different types of fiber. There are some other properties of fiber. I won't go into that today, but for, let's say, normal person, let's say, for soluble versus insoluble fiber will be enough to understand the difference. And with psyllium husk, for example, again, this is going to be very individual how much you take. You will start with very little and then see if you're tolerating it. After a couple of weeks, you can then decide whether it has any positive impact or not. But it's going to be something that usually is not going to have any side effects. So it's worth trying. So in terms of other supplements, I would say probiotics. So here, I would say it's more nuanced than than if we compare it to, let's say, psyllium or peppermint oil, because probably everyone heard that word probiotics, that it's good for gut health, but the truth is that some probiotics help for some, they will help some people, but they are not going to show results for everyone, right? So for example, there's certain particular ones like Bifidobacteria infantis. It has some good data for bloating, and also overall IBS symptoms, and also a number of studies show that probiotics can improve global symptoms, global IBS symptoms, which is, for example, pain and bloating as well. So they are not necessarily targeting one specific thing, but at the same time, there are studies that show no benefit, right? So those expert guidelines even are conflicted. So we don't have particular guideline, you need to promote probiotics to your IBS patient and you need to give them that because it's going to help. It's not that very clear. So I think it also doesn't mean that probiotics never work, but it means that we haven't sort of nailed down exactly which strains for which patients, and also effects that are inconsistent, right? So in my practice, I wouldn't give probiotics to every IBS client by default. And if a client, let's say, is eager to try one, or maybe has a history of, let's say, some antibiotic use, or disrupted their gut, then we can just do a personalized trial, right? And then I might suggest some multi-strain formula to be tried for 8 weeks. But if there are no symptom improvement after 4 weeks, then they don't need to feel like they need to continue it. So yeah, generally I would frame it like that. This may help. This may help, and it's generally safe to try for a few weeks. But if you don't notice those improvements, then don't feel like you need to continue, right? Because also they can be pricey, and not every gut really likes them. Sometimes they may even cause more problem than good. So yeah, it can be, again, something in the toolkit, but I wouldn't say it's a must-have. So another thing, it might not be very obvious because probably you wouldn't find it in literature as something that would normally be given, and it's not specific for IBS. But what I'm thinking is vitamin D. So it's not gonna treat acute symptoms, but it could be a part of restoring optimal health. So what happens is that a lot of people with IBS have actually deficiency of vitamin D or insufficiency of the vitamin D. So either very low level or they're deficient, so the level is too low. And this can actually, when they're taking vitamin D, this can help with things like even bloating, abdominal pain, also overall quality of life. So vitamin D plays such a huge role in the immune system that they may just see huge improvements by making sure that with supplements they are going to increase those levels. And it's also for general population really as well. We tend to be deficient in vitamin D in many places in the world, so it could be actually a good supplement for everyone to take. So I think that one is something that is not maybe very obvious, but what I would do is recommend getting blood tests done, and if the vitamin D levels are low, then I would recommend taking those supplements for sure.
Got it.
Yeah, and then you mentioned magnesium before as well. So magnesium is quite popular one, like magnesium citrate, for example, for relieving constipation, and that can also play a role in managing nervous system as well. So anxiety, and there are some types of magnesium that are helpful for that. It's going to be gentle. It's not going to be working like a typical laxative, but it's pretty much safe as well. So it's okay to be taken if it helps, and worth trialing. Then we didn't talk about digestive enzymes, I believe.
Yes.
So I think there are more and more products on the market. And then I would say, here I would give those if the mainstream approaches wouldn't work. So maybe if someone has obvious lactose intolerance, they can be given lactase tablet, right? So just to help them manage. There are also some blends now that are helping to break down FODMAPs. I think the only one that they do not break currently is polyols. But apart from that, it's a blend which you can put on your meal. Obviously, if that meal contains those FODMAPs, because otherwise there is no point, right? Putting enzymes onto something that does not contain that particular FODMAP, right?
Right.
And this is going to help you digest food, meaning that if you are sensitive to those FODMAPs, they are not going to cause problem. And it can be helpful if, for example, eating out and you don't want to stress about symptoms. You can have a sachet, just sprinkle it on the meal, and then you just eat it, and
Wow.
you are fine.
That's
Yeah,
so clever.
yeah. So I think that supplements, they can play a supportive role in IBS, but they should support and not substitute the foundational, work. Because some people want, shortcuts and think they're going to take pills, it's going to change everything, right? Or cutting food is so simple because you're just taking something away. But actually, it's making effort that is going to help you and making adjustments to your lifestyle that is long term, not short term.
And that's the rebuild phase, right?
Exactly. So that's where we are personalizing it. And depending on what people's triggers are, we are making sure that their life is personalized, that their approach is personalized, and they can just go away happy, and manage the condition by themselves at that point.
Solid. So you mentioned so I got in my list for supplements soluble fiber, probiotics, vitamin D, digestive enzymes, and of course enteric coated peppermint oil. So that's awesome. So specifically soluble fiber, right? I've heard a promising fiber as well. It's also soluble, sun fiber. Is that something you've looked into? Is that something that's as good as Psyllium husk at times for clients?
I'm not sure if Sunfiber is that the brand name because
Yes.
it might be
Yes, it
that Sun.
is.
I'm not sure about this brand name, but I'm not sure if it's not Psyllium actually.
Oh, it's actually, it's
What is it?
partially
A
hydrolyzed guar gum.
hydrolyzed gargam. Okay, so that
Yes.
works similarly to psyllium husk. It can be used as
Okay.
well. Yeah. So yeah, so if it's partially hydrolyzed gargam, then it is going to have the similar way of action as psyllium. Yeah, so it can be
Got
used.
got it. And also I heard some good stuff about resistant starch. So like rice that you can put in the fridge and overnight it becomes resistant starch.
I guess you mean to manage diarrhea or
Yeah, just overall for the gut, whether it's diarrhea or constipation.
I would say not necessarily because resistant starch can also cause other problems, and
Ah,
depending on the food, it might also be fermented by gut bacteria. So again, very individual depending on symptoms and what you want to achieve for that. Right? If you just want to bulk up the stool because of diarrhea, for example, then why not? But not for all the symptoms. It's not going to
got it.
resolve all the symptoms.
Got it. And specifically for these supplements, you mentioned the word layering. And so like layering the supplement, like layer
Yeah, I see what you
yeah.
mean. Yeah.
And so you were mentioning like beyond global probiotics that have multiple uses, is the thought process behind this layering of supplements that okay, this ingredient is for this symptom, this ingredient is for this symptom?
Yeah, so I would say if there are a couple of symptoms, because depends again, right? If there are a couple of symptoms that you want to target, you would start with the one that is most disruptive for the
Yes.
person, right? So there is no like particular logic, you need to start from this one because the protocol says that. You would start like you would use common sense and just start with the person on what is the most debilitating symptom for them and what's most important for them to relieve.
Got it, got it. And it's so interesting because I feel like the main approach is like a trial and error, right? Figuring out, okay, this doesn't work, let's try this. This doesn't work, let's try this. But is there another aspect to it where you can kind of condense different types of clients into gut types? Like like you know how they say like gut enterotypes. I was just skimming literature on it and it's like interesting. Like there's a certain higher count of one bacterial species versus another, and it's also like geographically, right? Like a person from Africa might have a different gut microbiome than someone in India, right? So I was just wondering, like, is there maybe some like maybe through testing or something that we can figure out what maybe like bucket their gut probably falls into, and then have a bit more context as to what can help them?
Yeah, it's almost like a DNA blueprint, but for your gut microbiome. Is that what you're referring to? So
Yeah.
I think this science is emerging. There are studies that are focusing on this. We don't have any particular guidelines yet. We just don't know. We don't have enough information. It's promising, but we will see. At the moment, it's not something that I would target personally. It's just not enough information and data for me at the moment to support that approach. It would be experimental work, which I'm not quite keen
Yes, yes, yes.
to try. As a registered dietitian, we also need to follow certain code of conduct. So it's important to stick with what is science based, what is evidence based.
Got it. Got it. And I wanted to share a little bit, Alex, about what I am trying to do. Quick context. A lot of my loved ones also struggled with IBS for a few decades. So that's why I actually decided to immerse myself into gut health. I started seeing this problem again and again in a lot of people, especially younger people. And so I decided let's try to learn more about this and hopefully be a part of the solution. And so right now I am building a vision for a supplement brand specifically around gut health. And it's not just a supplement brand. Long term, we are focusing on hopefully making an ecosystem of professional experts because as you mentioned before, every gut is unique and you need that personalized care to really move the needle. It's so hard if it's just, protocols, just like you mentioned in the UK. And so we're trying to also host like a ecosystem of dietitians along with a targeted, I know you're on the fence about it, but targeted supplements, targeted, so specifically for IBS-C, specifically for IBS-D, SIBO, right? Small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and then GERD. I feel like that's like a very big one. Gas, acid reflux, and all that. So what are your thoughts maybe on an idea of like a supplement aspect with a ecosystem of professionals? And if you have any advice for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, because it's quite complex. The condition is quite complex, right? Because you can have supplement to restore your gut, right, which will be focused more on probiotics. So those bacteria, right, or psyllium, which is the fiber, and you can, I guess, merge those together. But then you could have also something like gut brain support formula, right, to tackle nervous system or anxiety. So this could contain things like magnesium glycinate or ashwagandha, which is, it's adaptogenic and helps to manage anxiety, and even things like chamomile, or lemon balm, something that will be soothing for the brain, right? So I'm not sure if you are able to create one pill with all of those properties, because I've never formulated supplements myself, and I guess there is certain way of doing it. But also you need to take into account whether certain ingredients can be within the same capsule. Are they going to cancel each other or interfere? I would say it's going to be challenging to find one pill. It might be more of a line of different supplements,
Yes.
um, that will target, that will be let's say multi-component, but they will target various aspects, so like nervous system, gut healing, things like that.
Yeah, so that's actually my follow-up. So our approach, right? I was trying to think about it in a root cause approach. So like looking at the root causes. So dysbiosis, lack of digestive enzymes, high stress, a weakened, brain gut connection. So looking at these root causes and maybe instead of having supplements for specific problems, so like this for IBS, this for IBSD, but having like more of like these root cause a target supplementation. So like if you have dysbiosis, then maybe this is what's going to improve the dysbiosis aspect.
This is your bundle, right? Something like that. Yeah, I think like bundle of two, three things, let's say. I think that's
Yeah.
how this could work. Yeah, definitely. I think because it's just impractical, because if you wanted to mix, let's say, digestive enzymes with, let's say, magnesium, right, you're not going to sprinkle it on
Right,
on
right, right,
on
yeah, right.
food, right, and
No.
just have it like that. So it will be in different form of and shape as well, so you need to take that into account, how much value you can put in one pill, let's say. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't, yeah, it doesn't have to be one pill, right?
Okay, I
Like
see. Yeah.
yeah, it could be a powder if it's for fiber, or it could, because if it's like if I want to give someone Psyllium husk, for example, then 5 grams or like 5 to 10 grams of Psyllium husk, I probably can't put that in a capsule, but I can have a fiber, like I can have a powder for it.
Yeah, that's
So
correct.
like so powder, then we have liquid, then we have capsules for different things. But then yeah, having like specific target root cause supplements. Hopefully that's I'll keep you posted, but hopefully
Yeah,
we're
I'm
onto
curious. So
something.
so when are you planning to sort of start working on this? I guess you've already started. I mean, there is
Yeah.
the vision there, I see. And when are you planning to develop that?
Yeah, like I thought I was asking the questions, but why not? I'm just kidding. But yeah, like I think closer to fall, maybe in October, November,
Hmm.
we'll come out with our first our first supplement, and then
Wow.
slowly if we feel like, it works, then we'll probably, get another supplement. But I of course there's one issue, right? Because when I was venturing out to create a brand, I was just thinking about the science of it, but there's also a logistical side of it. I'm figuring this whole logistical side out. But for now, given my funding, I'm probably gonna be able to only start with one supplement.
Yeah, and that's okay. You will
Yeah.
test it and see if people like it, and if they do buy it, you can then continue,
Yeah,
which is, I would say, normal way to do it, because you want to test first
that's
thing
it.
first and then build on that, right? So yeah, I hope that it will go well for you. To be fair, I cannot wait to see, and all the branding behind it as well, and when you start promoting it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think the biggest part of it is just educating people to hopefully, and I'm learning myself, but educating people to look more towards the root cause of a problem versus the symptom and how do I numb the symptom. Like if it's a laxative, right? Like for constipation, you can take a laxative and go and takes a laxative and go. But if it's like you're taking a laxative for 10, 20, 30 years, you're all of a sudden dependent on the laxative versus addressing the root cause and then being like, okay, let's fix the root cause, and then I might not have to take the laxative, and I could go on my own.
That's true, and I mean, of course, with laxatives, it's tricky as well, because sometimes the bowel is so dependent on it that it just doesn't work like it should anymore, right? So it's gonna take a while to get back to that baseline, if not, months or even years. So it's a process as well. So I think it's also understanding. It would be good if you deepen your knowledge around those areas as well.
Yeah.
Um, that, in principle, yes. So
Yeah.
let's say remove those laxatives, but then, you can have expectations for your supplement to start working straight away, but it might not be the case, just because the healing process takes a long time, right? So
Right.
it's also understanding how the body works, and how it can how quickly it can go back to normal, and what else might be needed to support that.
Yeah. And I'm keeping into my mind when you mentioned 4 weeks, right? Had trying something for 4 weeks, and I have if I'm a person suffering from IBS and I've taken something for 4 weeks and it hasn't helped, then I'm discarding it, right?
Yeah. So that's particularly for probiotics, because it's
Okay.
gonna take time, right? So that's the advice we give for probiotics. For some other things, obviously, if you're taking fast acting agents, then you're expecting it to work within an hour, even, right? Like
Yeah.
anti-diarrhea or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, right, with supplements, you need to take some time to try, for sure.
Right, right. And to wrap it up, Alex, I wanted to ask you if someone is listening right now and they feel completely defeated by their gut issues, their gut symptoms, what would you want them to know?
I just would like them to know that there is a way to get out of that feeling and that hopelessness. It's just a matter of finding a personalized and holistic approach to their problem, rather than trying to put a plaster on each separate symptom, and just taking it from there, starting one step at a time, rather than overwhelming yourself with too much noise, with too much knowledge, but starting practical steps that are evidence based, and then either discarding them or trying new thing, almost like a detective work. But
Right.
not giving up, because if you give up, if you stop, then you know what the outcome will be, right? Nothing will change if nothing changes. So just by not giving up and showing up for yourself and trying to change things based on science, I think is going to be helpful.
Absolutely. Alex, thank you so much for your time. I know everyone can find you on Instagram at ibs.gutdietitian. Is there any other place you would like to bring our viewers for more information on IBS?
So if you just want to find me and learn a little bit more of what I do, you can find me at www.thedigitaldietitian.co.uk. And yeah, I think that's where all the major information is. So yeah, you can go there as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for all your time, Alex. Hopefully we talk soon.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.